Welcome to our video on how to be a revision pro. Hopefully you're watching this video because sometime in the near future you might have tests or exams, or you're someone that just wants to brush up on your revision technique. Now, before you can start revising at all, you really need a clear idea about what it is you need to revise for your upcoming test or exam. So you've got to make a list of the required outcomes, okay? So what you have studied. Your teacher would have given you some kind of list of outcomes. You might get exam notifications, okay? But you need a list of everything you've studied that is going to be tested in that exam or test. Now, once you've got this list, you could use this, or it's really recommended that you use this as a list from which you can prioritize what revision you need to do. So for example, you could use a traffic light system for each outcome, where you look at the outcome and you say, I get that, I don't need to revise that too much more. I kind of get it, but I could do a little revision. And then obviously those outcomes where you really don't get it at all, you need to do a lot more revision. You may even have to seek assistance from your teacher further to really embed that concept. So it's really important from your initial list of objectives, what you're going to be tested on, you actually prioritize what you need to revise and at what depth, because there's no point going over and over notes on a concept that you already understand. Okay, so when it comes to revision, you need to find a technique that works for you. And I have many conversations with students that say, I just read my notes, miss, that's what works for me. Well, sadly, if that's what you're doing, that doesn't work, okay? You may think it works for you, but the problem is you don't have an understanding of how your brain actually works there. Now, if you just read information, your brain just takes that in as a surface level. What you need to get your brain to do is process that information. So you read some information, it goes into your brain, and then you need to create something with it, whether it be a mind map, a poster, whether it be some flashcards, some further notes, which are in a reduced format. But you must have that input, the processing in your brain, and then the output. And also another thing that's just really important to remember is that input, which would be your brain reading or listening to a YouTube clip or something like that, the process, the output really needs to be handwritten. There is actually neurological processes that are different in terms of writing compared to typing. So it's really important in your early stages of revision at young ages that you are handwriting your revision notes or posters and things like that, because there's a neurological process that embeds that information much better into your brain. Okay, so different revision techniques. I just talked about them. Let's have a look at them. First of all, there's mind maps. Now, mind maps, you start off with that key concept in the middle, okay, and then you branch off to further concepts around that key concept. Now, one thing to remember, don't make your mind map too complicated. So, for example, if you've been studying chemical bonding in a unit of chemistry, don't make your mind map all about chemistry, because it will become far too complicated, whereas one section of the chemistry that you studied may have been chemical bonding. So make the mind map about chemical bonding, okay, and then go from there. And you may have a further mind map which is based on ionic bonding or covalent bonding. So draw out your concepts using the mind map, and then you may make further mind maps around that. But here are some tips on mind map making. There's lots of videos on YouTube around how to make mind maps if you want to look at that further. One thing with mind maps, make them colourful, okay? Because the more colour, the more that your brain will process what it's looking at. If you're good at sketching and cartoons, it's good to add them in as well. Some people are, I'm not, but I will use a lot of colour when I do mind mapping. Okay, anchor charts and revision posters. These are your key points put into a colourful format with some images as a poster as such, okay? So it's really picking out that key information So reading text, reading your notes in your book and taking out the key information and putting it into a poster form as such, all around one key point. Again, like with the mind maps, don't make it too complicated. So if your topic has been chemistry, don't do one poster on the chemistry. You probably won't get into the depth that you need to. Do separate posters, for example, atomic structure, chemical bonding, and things like that. Many people use flashcards for revision. So a flashcard is a small card and on it you write notes relating to the topic that you've done. I personally do flashcards after I've done revision, taking notes into a condensed note form, and from the condensed note form I then personally make my flashcards. They're really good with definitions, so words and definitions. You have the word on the front, and on the back you have the definition, and there's various things you can do. You can test yourself by looking at the word, what's the definition, vice versa, the definition, what's the word. You can do quizzes, you can get your family to test you. All different ways you can use flashcards. Again, if this is something that interests you further, do some research yourself around how you can use flashcards. There's lots of YouTube videos and information on the internet, different ideas about using flashcards. Okay, note taking. This is an important one because I know it's the default for many students, but you need to make sure that if you are taking notes, you do it well. You can't just rewrite everything that you read because, again, your brain will kind of go into a lazy mode where it just reads and you copy it down, and it's not actually embedding that knowledge into your deeper brain as such. Okay, it's not doing that transfer process. So what you need to do is read the notes and pick out the key points from it. You can see on the pictures on the page here that some information is highlighted, showing that's a key point. Quite often there's lots of what we like to call waffle around what's written, and it's really about picking out what's the key part to that. Might be formulas, might be diagrams, might be keywords. You can see you can take notes from computers as well. You could be watching a video or watching or reading notes on the computer, but it's really important that your notes for revision are taken by hand because of that whole transfer process I spoke of earlier. There are different methods to taking notes. One method is known as the Cornell notes, and you can see there a demonstration of how that works. You've got your main idea in the left-hand side, and you take down any keywords, any diagrams, information on the right-hand side, and then you summarize the notes below in a section at the bottom there. But many of you will choose to do maybe bullet point notes, where you read your information and you're taking bullet points in your book. That's fine. That's another way. Remember, highlighters, colourful, make things stand out. Okay. All of you, I would imagine, do some practice using exam questions, and this is fantastic. Once you've done your revision, this is a fantastic opportunity to see what you know. But it's no good just doing some practice exam questions if you don't do anything with that after. So what are some things that you could do once you've looked at some practice questions? Marking your responses, that is the most important thing. There's no point just answering some exam questions and not doing anything with it. That's a complete waste of your time. You have to then mark it to see how you're going. You need to be able to question the mark scheme. Why does it want that? And if you can't justify why a mark scheme wants that specific answer, then you need to clarify that with your teacher. With multiple choices, it's really good, not just marking the correct answer, but actually saying why the other answers are incorrect, because you're then embedding your knowledge on that topic. You need to understand the mark allocation. So if you've got a question that's worth 3 marks, why are each of those points worth those marks? Why can't I have these 2 answers? So it's really important that you have that understanding of the mark allocations, and that's really helpful in your revision to gain that understanding. Most importantly, you need to be able to give yourself feedback. So if you've answered a question, what have you done well about it? What have you not done well? Obviously not with multiple choice, they're either wrong or right. But then you can question if you've got it incorrect, why? Why did you think that was the answer compared to this? But on short answer and extended response questions, really giving yourself feedback as to why you think you should have that mark and why you shouldn't have that mark becomes really valuable because you're justifying your knowledge. Okay, some other revision strategies that you might like to use. There's many online quizzes. You've got your Kahoots, your Quizzes, your Quizlets. Quizzes and Quizlets have an option where you can do like a flashcard revision technique. BBC Bite Size has many resources for revision and quizzes and things of that nature. And obviously YouTube clips as well. It is really important that you vary your revision, okay? So if you do some note taking, make sure you also do some quizzes, do some practice tests, and in your revision timetable that you put together, make sure you have very different subjects backed onto each other. Because if you've got subjects that require a lot of note taking as your revision, your brain will just go into an automatic mode. So it's really about keeping your brain active, doing different kinds of activities as your revision strategies. The most important thing, if you can get organized with your revision, then it will all fall into place for you and you will feel so much more calm and prepared for your exam. All we ask is that you do the best that you can with good preparation for your exams. And excuse the fact that both organised have got Z's in them. Good luck with your revision, and I hope this video has been helpful.